Hey everybody, and welcome back for another Deadzone / Firefight paint tutorial. Working on my Kalyshi Deathstrike today. I was really excited to get this model in hand. I was actually running a one-page rules model proxy for a little bit right before they brought it out. So I'm excited to get her painted up and on the table. The base, you'll notice, is already painted. When I was working on my enforcers previously, I had a batch of them that I just got primed and based so that they were ready to go. So if you want to see how to do that, just check out one of the previous enforcer videos. With this, I've started with a black prime with the white zenithal. Pretty heavy white zenithal, but what I'm doing right now is applying Army Painter Fanatics red tone to it. This is just to add a little bit of undercolor to it, but more importantly to help my old eyes see the details. This is just a nice little trick to make sure that you can see what's going on as you're getting the model started. With the red tone washed dry, we're going to apply Pro Acryl Advanced Flesh Tone as our base color into the darkest areas of the skins. So we're just looking for the exposed flesh that is just black from the initial zenithal prime. We can bleed over a little into the areas where it's going to cross over because we'll blend those once we start getting into our lighter tones. But we're just going to work thin and work calmly, apply maybe a couple of coats where need be, and just get the darkest tones of her flesh blocked out. Next up, we're going to take the advanced flesh tone that we were using as our base and mix it 1-to-1 with Pro Acryl tan flesh to create our first initial highlight here. We're going to use this to apply to all of the rest of the exposed skin on the model. Now, when we're working with this, we want to make sure that our brush is pulling away from the darkest areas so that we can get them to blend a little better and we're not depositing more of the paint on the dark area than the light area. We want to make sure that the paint is pulling back from where our darkest shadows already are so that we can get a little bit of a blend going with them. We're going to use this mixture and base out the rest of the skin, as well as apply just a couple of light highlights into the darkest areas to accent musculature and whatnot. And now we're on to our final flesh tone highlight. We're going to use straight tan flesh from Pro Acryl, and we're going to apply this in the area where we're going to get a little light bounce off the skin. Along the thigh, edge of the nose, that kind of stuff, just to bring out the highest points of light and try to bring a little life to the skin. Our skin tone wrapped up. We'll take a moment here to apply a quick coat of Army Painter Speed Paint Bone Matter to the flail that she is carrying. Alright, now let's get to work on the armor that the Deathstrike is wearing. We're going to block in the darkest regions of the armor using Pro Acryl Burnt Red. We just want a nice thin even coat. Take it nice and slow to avoid going over any of the skin tone or other portions of the model that we've already gotten started. And just get her blocked in her darkest regions so that we can highlight up. For whatever reason, I neglected to paint the skulls on the shoulders and the bone jaw protector that she is wearing when I did the flail. So we'll go ahead and hit that now before we move on to our initial highlight color. Now we're going to move on to a mixture of Acryl burnt red and red oxide to create our initial mid-tone. We'll apply this to the rest of the armor that we haven't based out yet and apply some initial highlights to some of the darkest areas just to pronounce their details and bring out a little bit of the bounce light. Now we switch over to pure red oxide by Acryl. We're going to use this to apply all of our edge highlights and areas that we want to be the most intense red on the model. With skin and armor completed, now we're going to go on to knocking out some of the smaller details on the model. We're going to start with the leather straps around the bottle. We're going to use Acryl dark golden brown as our dark tone. And we're going to apply this to any of the straps that are in shadow. So anything that's a little darker than everything else, we'll apply this as the base to. Work thin, side of the brush, and just take your time so that we're not having to repaint any of that flesh tone or armor that we've just finished up. Essentially the same step again, except now we're going to work on the light side of the model. To do this, we're going to use a mixture of Acryl dark golden brown and caramel brown, or caramel, depending on your pronunciation, to apply our base tone to the lighter side of the model. Well, this is embarrassing. I have apparently either not recorded and or lost a little bit of footage. After doing all of those straps, I went in there and used a little bit of dark silver just to tap on all the buckles and connectors all over the belts across the model. Then I moved on to using a thin glaze of red oxide and tan flesh tone, just so that I could apply some edge and spectral highlights. And this is very thin glaze consistency. I don't want this to get out of control, but I do just want to add a little bit of higher end light reflecting off of the armor, just to pronounce some of those edges and bring it out a little bit more. Red and purple are the main colors in my Asterian army, so I'm going to take advantage of these feathers coming off of the Deathstrike shoulder, and I'm going to apply some Acryl purple as a base tone, just to tie her into my entire army and do something a little flashier up on those shoulder pads. An ancient and powerful sage of the internet once said in an email video that he produced, "Gotta have the blue hair." So let's go with Jade. I like this color. It really plays well against the red armor, and a number of my Kalyshi have a variety of hair colors, from Jade to blue to purple to yellow, just to kind of make their heads stand out and to make them a little more alien. If you've been with me this long, you know the next step. We're going to highlight that Acryl Jade with Acryl Bright Jade, just to pronounce all those nice flowy strands of hair. While I failed to provide you footage of applying the Acryl dark silver to all the buckles and whatnot, I did manage to provide footage of highlighting that dark silver with Acryl silver. We're going to use this to just put an edge highlight on any of the buckles and connectors that we applied the dark silver to, as well as the sharp edge of the flail that she's holding. Dear viewer, I present to you Blur. Okay, so I am applying Pro Acryl Rich Gold as the base coat for the detailed metallics and the bow here. Nice, slow, and easy. Just stay in your line so we don't get metallic on our red. The hardest part is going to be the back where the bow is just pressed up against the hair and the armor and the flesh. So just take your time, nice and slow, and get it done. We'll follow that rich gold base coat up with an edge highlight of Pro Acryl Bright Gold. Here's where the madness took me. Still not happy with how much the armor is popping. I'm going in with a technique inspired by Don Suratos out here on YouTube. I'm using Pro Acryl light neutral gray. It's almost a white gray, and I am stippling on like some textured edge highlight to really be a pronounced edge. But the idea here is that I want this super bright, because what I want to do is come in and resaturate the armor's red using a speed paint. So it will shift that almost white into a proper looking highlight while also increasing the saturation of the red on the armor and making it a lot more vivid. Since I've committed myself to this resaturation strategy with the speed paint, I'm going to go the whole 9 and hit the flail and all the skeletal bony parts on the Deathstrike with Pro Acryl, appropriately named Bone, just to kind of give those a little more saturation. Well, not saturation is the wrong word, but to give them a sterner base coat. And then I will reapply the bone matter speed paint over those to kind of reshade and saturate them as well. The cool thing is that the speed paint should allow all the work we've done to still be visible underneath the new layer of more vivid color. Let's induce a little anxiety quick and try to paint some eyeballs. Alright gang, here we go. So we're using a thinned down blood red Army Painter speed paint. We're going to mix this 1 or 2 to 1 with speed paint medium depending on how saturated you want it. And we're going to apply it in a thin layer over the entire thing, much like we're just glazing the entire model. Not like traditionally with speed paint where we're going to slop it on heavy and want it to run into everything. We do want to get a little under to run into the crevices, but we're not looking to drown what we've already done before. So we want to make sure that this is diluted and thinned enough that while it's still saturating the paint underneath, it's not covering all the work and the highlights and the blends that we've done, so that everything kind of blends through together. After the armor's all done and dried up, we're going to do the same thing with the skin. We're going to use Crusader Flesh speed paint. We're also going to thin that down about 2 to 1 with speed paint medium and apply it to all the skin tones. Armor check, skin check, bony matter for the bony bits. I'm actually really happy in this part of the project with how well this is going, so let's splash on a little Army Painter Plasmatic Bolt for the Jade on the hair. Now, you were probably expecting another speed paint, but fooled you. I'm going to apply some Army Painter Fanatic Light Tone Wash to the gold bits on the model. I know this one is getting on the longer side, and I appreciate it if you stuck around this far. We're getting really close to the end. I'm going to take some Pro Acryl Coal Black, and I'm going to apply it to all the little orbies across the flail and the bow on her back so that we can do a little bit of a gemstone effect on those. Okay, so this next part I do as one contiguous shot here, so I will try to splice it together so it's useful, but here's the breakdown. I'm using Pro Acryl Sky Blue. I'm going to use that to apply a bright vivid blue to the glowy bits along the flail. I'm also going to use that to do the bottom half of the orbies. We want the idea that light is going through and causing them to glow, so your bright color is going to be on the underside of where the light hits this gemstone. And then you're going to use just a dot of white from where the light source is hitting that orb to indicate the light direction. So you should have a white dot on one side and a larger colored dot on the opposite side of the black orb. Well, if you've watched any of my previous videos, you know where we are now. This is it. This is the end. We're going to black rim that base. If you've made it all the way through this, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit here and watch me work my way through this Kalyshi Deathstrike. I was really excited to get my hands on this model, and I was even more excited to actually get some paint on it. I had a really good time with this model. This was more of a try-hard for me. I usually am more focused on getting armies out that look decent, but I really wanted to try to make this model look sharp. So if you found anything of value in this video, I'd encourage you to please, give it a like. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do. I'd like to keep making content, and I'd like to see it reach more people, especially if you think this is valuable. Please share, comment, ask questions. I try to answer comments as quickly as I can. And with that, I'll go ahead and leave you with the final reveal shots of the model. And thank you for taking the time for watching.